When Roberto Durán says a boxer is the strongest, the whole world listens. This is a man they called Hands of Stone, a man who fought Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler, and Thomas Hearns, a legend who won world titles in 4 different weight classes. So when Durán picks his 3 toughest opponents, you know these aren't just names. These are the fighters who pushed him to his absolute limit, the men who tested not just his power, but his heart, his mind, and his soul. Today we're diving into the story of Roberto Durán's greatest battles. Not the fights everyone talks about, but the ones that truly shaped the warrior from Panama. Roberto Durán didn't just fight to win, he fought to prove something deeper. Throughout his career, he faced over 100 opponents. He knocked out 70 of them. But when you ask Durán about toughness, he doesn't just talk about power. He talks about intelligence, he talks about heart, he talks about the fighters who made him think, made him struggle, made him dig deeper than he ever thought possible. And the 3 names he chooses might surprise you. Let's start with the man who first showed Durán he could bleed, the man who handed him his very first professional loss, the man who knocked him down not once but twice. His name was Esteban de Jesus, and their rivalry was more than just boxing. It was a battle between 2 nations, Panama and Puerto Rico. It was a story of pride, revenge, and respect that would span 3 unforgettable fights. November 1972, Madison Square Garden. Roberto Durán walked into the ring undefeated, 31 wins, 0 losses. He had just won the world title 5 months earlier by beating Buchanan. He was young, hungry, and unstoppable, or so everyone thought. Then, in the very first round, De Jesus landed a perfect left hook, and for the first time in his career, Roberto Durán hit the canvas. The crowd went wild. The champion was down, and things only got worse from there. De Jesus outboxed him. He frustrated him. He made the great Durán look human. After 10 rounds, the judges gave the fight to De Jesus by unanimous decision. It was a crushing defeat, the first blemish on a perfect record, but Durán doesn't forget, and he doesn't forgive easily. 16 months later, they met again. This time, the world title was on the line. The setting was Panama City, Durán's home. The heat was suffocating. The crowd was roaring. And once again, in the very first round, De Jesus landed that same left hook. Once again, Durán went down, but this time was different. This time, the knockdown didn't break him. It ignited him. Durán rose from the canvas with controlled fury. He didn't rush. He didn't panic. He stalked De Jesus like a predator. Round after round, he broke him down. In the 7th round, Durán dropped De Jesus. In the 11th round, he finished him with a devastating knockout. Revenge was his. But the story wasn't over. Not yet. 4 years later, in 1978, they faced each other one final time. This was the biggest fight yet, a unification bout at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. Durán held the WBA and Ring Magazine titles. De Jesus had captured the WBC belt. The winner would be the undisputed lightweight champion of the world. This time, there was no knockdown in the first round. This time, Durán was prepared. He applied relentless pressure. He wore De Jesus down with brutal body shots and vicious combinations. In the 12th round, he stopped his rival for good. The trilogy was complete. Durán had conquered his greatest nemesis. Years later, something remarkable happened. In 1989, Esteban de Jesus was dying from AIDS. This was a time when people feared the disease, when many wouldn't even come close to someone who had it. But Roberto Durán traveled to Puerto Rico to see his old rival. He walked into that hospital room. He embraced de Jesus. He kissed him on the forehead. In that moment, Durán showed the world who he really was. Not just a fighter, but a man of deep honor and compassion. The rivalry that began with hatred ended with profound respect. So why does Durán call de Jesus the hardest puncher he ever faced? Because de Jesus was the only man to drop him twice. Because those knockdowns tested more than his chin. They tested his spirit. They taught him that true toughness isn't about never getting knocked down. It's about getting back up with even more determination. De Jesus forced Durán to evolve from a raw force of nature into a complete champion. Without those 3 battles, Durán might never have developed the mental toughness to survive what came next. After dominating the lightweight division, Durán moved up in weight. He was hunting for new challenges, new mountains to climb. And there was no mountain bigger or more dangerous than marvelous Marvin Hagler, the undisputed middleweight champion of the world, a man who had defended his title 7 times, all by knockout, a fighter with an iron chin and an unbreakable will. On paper, it looked like suicide. Durán was a natural lightweight. Hagler was a massive middleweight, but Durán didn't care about size. He cared about legacy. The fight happened in November 1983 at Caesar's Palace. Everyone expected a war. 2 of the most ferocious fighters in boxing meeting in the center of the ring for 15 brutal rounds. But that's not what happened. Durán surprised the world. He didn't try to brawl with Hagler. He didn't try to stand and trade punches with a bigger, stronger man. Instead, he boxed. He moved. He used angles and feints and sharp counters. He fought the smartest fight of his entire career. For 13 rounds, the smaller man was winning. After 13 rounds, Durán was ahead on all 3 judges' scorecards by a single point. The crowd couldn't believe it. Hagler couldn't believe it. How was this lightweight outboxing the greatest middleweight in the world? But Hagler was a champion for a reason. He wasn't going to lose his title without a fight. In the 14th and 15th rounds, he finally let his hands go. He mounted a furious rally. He dominated the final 6 minutes. And when the final bell rang, Hagler had pulled ahead. He won by unanimous decision, but barely. Even in defeat, Durán's stock rose. What he did that night was beyond impressive. It was legendary. He proved that heart and intelligence can overcome size and power. He showed the world that he wasn't just a brawler. He was a master technician, a ring general, a boxing genius. Years later, Durán would say that Hagler was the toughest fighter he ever faced. Not because Hagler hurt him, but because Hagler never stopped. Durán landed his best shots. He hit Hagler with everything he had, and Hagler just kept coming forward. That's real toughness. That's the mark of a true champion. The Hagler fight restored Durán's reputation after the embarrassment of the No Mas incident against Sugar Ray Leonard. It proved he still had the heart of a warrior. It proved he could still compete with the absolute best, and it set up his legacy as one of the greatest pound-for-pound fighters in boxing history. But we need to talk about Sugar Ray Leonard, because while Durán didn't name him as the toughest in terms of power or skill, their rivalry represents something equally important: the toughest psychological battle of his entire career, a war of minds and egos that would haunt Durán for years. June 1980, the brawl in Montreal. Sugar Ray Leonard was undefeated, an Olympic gold medalist, the golden boy of boxing, fast, slick, and confident. He had everything going for him. But Durán understood something crucial. To beat Leonard, he had to break him mentally first. So Durán launched a campaign of psychological warfare unlike anything boxing had seen. He insulted Leonard. He insulted Leonard's wife. He got under his skin in ways that were shocking and brutal. He wanted Leonard angry. He wanted him emotional. He wanted him to abandon his greatest weapon, his speed. And it worked. When the fight started, Leonard tried to box for about 30 seconds. Then he snapped. He started brawling with Durán, trading punches, fighting Durán's fight. It was exactly what Durán wanted. For 15 rounds, they went to war. And when it was over, Durán had won by unanimous decision. He had dethroned the Golden Boy. After the fight, despite all the hatred and insults, Durán said Leonard was the best he had fought. It was a moment of respect after the storm. But then came November 1980, the rematch, the infamous No Mas fight. This is where Durán's greatest strength became his greatest weakness. After winning the first fight, he celebrated too hard. He partied. He gained weight. He had to cut down rapidly to make the welterweight limit. By fight night, he was drained, weakened, not himself. And Leonard had learned his lesson. He refused to brawl. He moved. He danced. He frustrated Durán with speed and taunting. In the 8th round, with Leonard clowning and totally in control, something inside Durán broke. He turned his back. He waved at the referee. He quit. Whether he said no mas or not, the damage was done. The warrior who never quit had surrendered. It was the lowest moment of his career, the stain on his legacy, and it taught him something painful. That pride and machismo, the very qualities that made him great, could also destroy him if left unchecked. The Leonard saga showed that mental toughness isn't just about being fierce. It's also about discipline, about preparation, about staying focused even when you're on top. Leonard didn't just beat Durán physically, he beat him psychologically by exposing his weakness, his inability to control himself outside the ring. Years later, something beautiful happened. Leonard and Durán became friends. They realized their legacies were forever linked, that their battles had elevated both of them. The hatred turned to mutual respect, and that respect grew into genuine friendship. It's a reminder that the toughest rivalries can sometimes produce the deepest bonds. But there's one more name we need to talk about. The fighter Durán praised more than any other for pure skill and intelligence. The man he called the most technically difficult opponent he ever faced. His name was Ken Buchanan. And here's the paradox. Durán beat Buchanan decisively. He dominated him. He took his world title in 1972 at Madison Square Garden. So why would Durán call him the toughest? The answer reveals everything about who Roberto Durán really was. Buchanan was a master boxer from Scotland. He had a perfect technique, slick movement, brilliant ring intelligence. He was the unified lightweight champion, and he was favored to beat the young challenger from Panama. Durán was 21 years old, undefeated, wild and aggressive. But Buchanan represented something different. He represented the highest level of the sweet science, the chess match, the mental war. From the opening bell, Durán went after him. He scored a knockdown in the first round. He swarmed Buchanan with pressure and aggression. He wanted to turn the boxing match into a street fight, and it worked. Durán was clearly winning, but Buchanan never made it easy. His movement, his timing, his defensive skills, they forced Durán to think. They forced him to cut off the ring perfectly. They forced him to use every ounce of his boxing intelligence. This wasn't a fight he could win with power alone. The fight ended in controversy in the 13th round. After the bell rang, both fighters kept punching. In the chaos, Durán landed a blow that sent Buchanan to the canvas in pain. The referee stopped the fight. Buchanan couldn't continue. Later, doctors confirmed the punch had been low, but by then, Durán was the new champion. The victory was his. Decades later, Durán still talks about Buchanan with the highest respect. He says Buchanan's intelligence made him very difficult to beat. While fighters like Sugar Ray Leonard were faster and stronger, Buchanan possessed tremendous skill. He forced Durán to be at his absolute sharpest, and that's what Durán valued most. Not the fighters who could hurt him physically, but the ones who challenged him mentally, the ones who made him prove he was more than just hands of stone. By choosing Buchanan as his toughest opponent in terms of skill, Durán was telling the world something important. He was saying that true greatness isn't just about power, it's about intelligence. It's about respecting the craft of boxing. Durán saw himself as a highly intelligent technician, and Buchanan was the opponent who tested that intelligence more than anyone else. So when you put it all together, you see three different types of toughness. Esteban de Jesus Jesus was the hardest puncher, the man who dropped Durán twice and forced him to develop an unbreakable spirit. Marvin Hagler was the ultimate physical test, the bigger, stronger champion who proved that some fighters simply won't break, no matter what you throw at them. And Ken Buchanan was the greatest technical challenge, the master boxer whose skill forced Durán to fight the perfect tactical battle. What makes Roberto Durán truly special isn't just that he beat most of these men, it's that he respected them, it's that he learned from them, it's that he understood what they took from him, what they taught him, and what they added to his legacy. Most fighters would name their toughest opponent based on who hurt them the most. Durán chose his based on who tested every part of his being, his heart, his chin, his mind, his skill, his will. That's the mark of a true champion. Someone who doesn't just measure greatness by wins and losses. Someone who understands that the greatest opponents are the ones who force you to become better, the ones who push you past your limits, the ones who make you dig deeper than you ever knew you could go. Roberto Durán fought over 100 professional fights. He won world titles in 4 weight divisions. He knocked out 70 opponents. He went 15 rounds with middleweights while weighing in as a lightweight. He survived wars that would have broken lesser men. But when he looks back, he doesn't just remember the victories. He remembers the battles, the struggles, the opponents who earned his respect by testing him in ways that numbers and records can never capture. That's the story of Roberto Durán, a man who fought giants and never stopped learning, a warrior who valued skill as much as strength, a legend who understood that toughness comes in many forms. Some opponents hit harder, some are bigger and stronger, some are smarter and more technical. But the truly great ones, the ones who deserve to be called the toughest, are the ones who push you to be everything you can possibly be. Think about what Durán did over his career. He moved up 4 weight divisions. That's nearly 40 pounds heavier than where he started. Most fighters struggle to move up even 1 weight class, but Durán kept climbing, kept challenging himself. He could have stayed at lightweight forever, defending his title against smaller opponents, padding his record. Instead, he chose the hard road, the dangerous road, the road that would test every fiber of his being. When he fought Thomas Hearns in 1984, he faced the brutal reality of physical limits. Hearns was 6'1" with a 78-inch reach. Durán was 5'7" with a 66-inch reach. The size difference was massive, and Hearns had devastating knockout power. In the second round, Hearns landed a perfect right hand that knocked Durán out cold. It was the first and only time in 119 fights that Durán was knocked unconscious. It was frightening, but even that loss teaches us something. It shows that Durán was willing to face impossible odds. He didn't pick easy fights. He picked the fights that would prove his greatness, win or lose. What separates Durán from so many other champions is his honesty about difficulty. He doesn't pretend the fights were easy. He doesn't diminish his opponents to make himself look better. When he talks about Buchanan's skill or de Jesus' power or Hagler's durability, he's not making excuses. He's paying tribute. He's acknowledging that these men were truly special, and by extension, he's showing that beating them, or even just competing with them, required something extraordinary from him. This is the wisdom of a true warrior, understanding that your opponents don't make you weaker, they make you stronger. Every tough fight, every knockdown, every moment of doubt, these are the things that forge a champion. De Jesus taught him resilience. Buchanan taught him the value of technical mastery. Hagler taught him that some battles are won just by refusing to break. Leonard taught him the importance of discipline and mental preparation. Even the loss to Hearns taught him something. That courage sometimes means accepting your limits while still being willing to test them. If you enjoyed this look into the mind of a legend, hit like and subscribe, and tell us in the comments which of Durán's fights you think showed his true toughness. Was it the trilogy with De Jesus, the masterpiece against Hagler, or the technical battle with Buchanan? Let us know what you think.